Okay, yeah, no, I get it, I get it. Yeah, so obviously like Libra outside, interesting. And then you have a Leo, which is probably in your,
Oh yeah, yeah, I
is
think I
that
do have
your,
Leo in my chart somewhere too.
I don't know if you have a Cancer or is that a Pisces in your Venus? Interesting. So, and then your Leo may be in your Jupiter, I bet, or it's in your Mars. What's your dominant one? And then your, I'm gonna look at that in just a second. So essentially what I'm doing, so I got all like scientific and weird a long time ago. Like, what was this, back when I was 21? Um, I got into trying to figure out like what do signs mean? You know, what the hell are
Mhm.
those? Because I remember growing up, I was born in 1988, so I grew up in you're around there as well, but I grew up in the era of going to the grocery store and you see the Cosmopolitan magazine and on the back of it it goes, "Oh my God, like look at your horoscope." And I remember reading it and being like, this is just a hunk of shit. And then I was like, well, with everything that is out there, there is truth to it. You just have to figure out where it's at, right?
Yeah.
And so then I started going through and like peeling it apart. And after like years of contemplating and studying and like understanding, I realized that all signs are a representation of a vibration or a lens of how you see and feel and experience the world. It's like a
Mm.
music note. And
Yeah.
you don't just have one, you have 15 of them. And when you come in this incarnation, there's all these like buzzwords, you have this particular lens that you view and live your life by. And that is dependent on, obviously kind of what your parents are, because there is a genetic trait to it. It's weird. Like whatever you and your partner are, your kids will always have that same mix. It will not deviate. Like if nobody has an Aries in them anywhere, your child will not have an Aries in it. So that's another weird thing
Mm.
that I've like looked
Mhm.
at.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
that's uh-huh. But then the
Yeah.
other thing is that depending on where you at, where you pop out of your mom on this planet, right? Everything is vibration, everything is frequency, everything is energy. And so depending on these large, planets that have this frequency coming off of them, just like my voice right now, when somebody hears it, it can change their opinion or their mindset or even their day. Now we have these massive frequencies that are coming at us, and so that essentially is changing maybe the cellular or the frequency vibration of how we see, feel, and experience the world. And so
Yeah.
then those planets are the quote unquote signs, but they're the
Mhm.
opposites of it. So, like, right, the sun is Leo. And instead of saying, oh, it's the vibration or the frequency of the sun, which is, having this experience of your outer personality, we go, oh, it's a lion, because that's so much easier to be palatable.
Easier.
So when
Yeah,
you go
that's true.
through, yeah. And so then when you go through and you read somebody or you feel them, you can feel what their music notes are if you start to learn what each one of them feels like and how they're aspected. And
Mm.
then you can begin to feel, are they acting in the highest version of it? Or
Mm.
are they still acting in the lowest vibration of it? And then
Yeah.
that's where getting into relationships with people or partners or mom and dad or whoever it is, because remember, at the end of the day, we are all just these 12 music notes kind of split off into different vibrations. So when you're saying, well, I don't know you, I'm like, well, technically, yes, you do, because we're the same thing, just aspected in different versions. And
Yeah.
so when you're in a relationship, you're trying to figure out how to harmonize. That's it,
Yeah.
which then goes
Huge.
back to everything is music.
Huge. Huge.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I have a plethora of different zodiac signs in my house.
Yeah.
Big on that stuff. So like for my mom and my dad was an Aries, my mom is a Sag.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
two fire signs? Like, so they never got
Uh-huh.
along. So I'm like, oh, it
No.
makes sense. But as a kid, I didn't get that. But like as an
Uh-huh.
adult, I'm like, oh, I can see why they clashed, right? And then now,
Yes.
like, I'm with an Aries. So, like, my dad was an Aries. I'm with an
Your
Aries,
pattern.
right? My grandfather with his was an
Mm-hmm.
Aries. I was like, okay, well, what's going
You're working, there's a pattern that you're trying to
clearly
work through that.
through,
Uh-huh. but
right?
but then even with the Sagittarius and Aries, on some degree, because they're all part of the same thing, they can get along. They just have to take the ego away and
That's
respect each other for their
yeah,
differences.
right. Well, that never happened.
I know, but that's why we're here.
Right? Exactly. So for me, I'm that Libra and my partner is an Aries. So we're like the polar opposites, right? So people are
Yeah.
always like, how do you guys make it work? Like, how? And I'm just like, well,
Yeah.
like, to be honest, if I didn't do the work that I do, like as a Reiki healer and just being
Hmm.
in spirit all the time, I don't know if we would, I think we would probably clash, but like,
You would.
yeah, I definitely utilize that. And then like he has now come on board and is like, okay, I get it. Before it was weird in the beginning. And now he's like, okay, I'm in a house of like, it's Hogwarts. And I'm like, yes, now you get it. And in that, we can have some amazing conversations where it's like,
Yes.
we don't clash. We just sit and have like, it's a discussion, right? Like a heated
Uh-huh.
discussion, it'll be a heated discussion, but at the end, we will always like, it will even
Yes.
out and be like, okay, you get where I'm coming from. Okay, I get where you're coming from. All right.
Yes, yes, and your straightforward bluntness in a good way is going to drive him fucking up the wall. And so he's
Oh,
going to have to learn how to control his emotions
yeah.
so that and it's very interesting when you do what we do. Okay, it's funny. My husband's an Aries as well. And so I want to look at your chart in just a second because I want to just like peek at it because
Yeah.
it's part of my like scientific journey in my brain.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We are the feminine, right? Right now, technically. But I mean, at the same time, I would even say if we're talking about past lives that are still all happening just right now, because they're all happening
Hmm.
now, because every moment is now. I don't know. I would even say maybe this life, obviously you're the girl, so last life you were probably the guy. And so now you're
Yeah.
learning how to structure yourself. And look, you're put in like this little thin body, right?
Yeah.
So the same thing, but you're like what, 5'6"? How tall are you?
No, I'm like 5'1". I
You are,
give the
you're that okay, so you are okay, okay. Like I'm 5'11", so I'm like this really tall
one.
little like noodle.
Yeah.
So we're the same in that. And so we've been taught, or we have this opposite energy being put in this like little frail body. And then
Yeah.
we're put up against these very tough, masculine, over emotional kind of in a way energies. And so everybody's learning how to balance. So, anyways, when you start pulling out and looking at the bigger picture, you're like, hmm,
Yeah.
peculiar. Yeah, peculiar.
Very interesting. Yeah. I like that you said that though, because I've always like, you know what, maybe in my past life I was the man and he was
Yes,
the
you are.
female.
I
Like,
bet. I bet. Well,
yeah.
let me peek really quick. Okay. Okay, you ready for this? You ready for this? So remember how I said I think your Leo's and your Mars? That's where it's at.
Yeah. That's where it's at, right?
Uh-huh. That's where it's at. Yeah. So that goes into my theory on if you're sensitive enough, and it's not everybody's fucking sensitive, but if you
Yeah.
like shut down your animal brain and you learn how to feel, you can pick up on these subtle nuances.
Hmm.
And that's also where the whole like Reiki thing comes into play. That's where sound healing comes into play. I mean, there's truth be told in all of this stuff. You just have to find it, and then I guess you'd essentially say prove it to people.
Right?
Um,
So many people out there don't consider zodiac signs or astrology. People say, I'm not into that stuff. I don't believe in that stuff. And I'm like, how could you not? Like that stuff
mhm,
does make up who you are in some way. Your personality, how you
mhm,
view the world, how the world views you, like, and you can utilize it, especially when the planets start to move. Like now you can
mhm,
absolutely harness that energy. Like I feel the energy if I move into the next season. Like, okay, this is what it's coming with. How am I going to
yeah.
utilize it to propel me forward rather than to just be like, it's just a sign. Like, oh no, I live
Uh,
with a whole bunch of zodiacs in my house. I know.
uh-huh,
Throw it off.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I get that 1,000%. Oh, how interesting. So when I look at this, I look at it like a book. So I have a big screen, so I'm going back
Yeah.
and forth. Um, hmm, interesting. He's just like it's just like you and my husband, or like me, like
We're
how
the
this
same
fits
in
together. Well, yeah. So like, okay, so you have a sun sign in Libra, right? Your outer personality, and then your moon, your emotional side is in Scorpio. So it's not
yeah.
Pisces; it's still a water sign, right? And so I'm a Scorpio on the outside, and then my moon is a Libra. So you and I
Oh,
are
I
the same,
see.
but
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah.
Crazy.
And then your communication style is in Scorpio, so is mine. Your Venus, your love language is in Scorpio. Mine's in Libra, so that's where it varies a little bit. This means that you're going to be with him no matter what, all the way through and through.
All the way to the end.
Um, yeah, all the way. You're like, I'm gonna fucking grip on you and like never let you go. And it's interesting because he likes to be gripped and
Yeah.
he will stay even though he can be a grump sometimes, which is fine because he has a Venus in his Taurus, which is well, Taurus in his
Mm,
Venus, which is what my husband does as well, which is interesting.
interesting.
Both of you have a Mars in Leo,
Oh, okay.
which means that the fights could be brutal. And now that you know about like each other, it's a little bit easier, but you are coming from the emotional, spiritual aspect. He's coming from the physical,
Yeah.
almost like maybe even be overindulgent aspect. And you and your husband
Yeah.
actually have the same thing that me and mine do. So his communication style is in Pisces. Mine and yours is in Scorpio, same as my
Mm,
husband. And what happens here is that we can be too nitpicky on their words and how they say things because they
yeah.
don't say it all the way or they keep half
Yeah.
of it in their brain. And we're
Yeah.
like, are you not going to finish that sentence? Why does that not make sense? And they're like, but I said it. And you're just
No,
like,
you
no, you
didn't.
didn't.
Can
No.
you just
And
say
because
what's
they,
on your mind?
yes, yes. And that's the Pisces thing. So we have to learn how to like calm down and not be as big of an asshole because that's what ends up
Yeah.
happening in these things
A
sometimes. And
hundred
then they
percent.
have to,
Yeah.
yeah, and they have to learn how to be a little bit more outspoken. His parents are divorced, right?
Yeah, his parents were divorced, and to him,
Mhm.
he didn't know where his place was and how he was to use his voice. So then you
Yeah.
come and meet me, and then I'm like very different in the way of
Uh-huh.
like, I'm going to use my voice and I'm going to say it like it is, but I was not like that as a kid. That was just me
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm older now. I'm a parent. I need to model what I'm sharing to my kids. I have to live that. So from there,
Uh-huh.
this was like me finding my voice and coming out and saying
Yeah.
like, no, like this is what I feel. This is da 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 da.
Uh-huh.
So for him,
Uh-huh.
he's learning that more. You know what I mean? I'm always
Yes.
like, just say what's on your mind. I would rather you tell me if I'm wrong in a situation than to hold back and not give
Correct.
me the fullness because my kids don't hold back, right? I would
No.
rather them
No.
tell me, like, Mom, I didn't like the way that you said that, or Mom, because I want to be held accountable so that I can change those things, right? I didn't grow up like that, but I want to shift and change that in my life. So, yeah, he's
Correct.
still working on it. Yeah. He's like
Uh-huh.
big.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know how your husband is, but like mine is like
mine's
six,
huge.
7. Yeah.
Interesting. There's a pattern here. Sorry, patterns never lie. And that also goes into channeling. Yeah, maybe we're autistic at some point. I don't get it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, but with him, the other pattern I see is that communication in Pisces. This usually means that he was raised mostly by women or he was
Yeah,
really
for sure.
impacted by women more. So therefore,
Yeah.
he's going to have that more like, well, I'm just going to think this and I'm not going to actually say it. And I'm going
Yeah.
to, like that. And
Yeah.
you come from a father that was more direct, which mine
Yeah.
was as well. And so at first, we were taught to be quiet and just listen. And now we kind of take on that role more, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Very
Um,
interesting.
hmm,
Ooh, I like
hmm.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
I'm very
whole
much
vibe.
like that. Yeah, because I love to
Yeah.
dissect down to
Yes.
like fine detail,
Yes.
right? Like I can't help it.
Yes. No, I know. Well, and that's why you like your partner. The other thing too, it's interesting. So you actually, your base vibration is in Sagittarius. So like kind of like what your foundation is made off of, which your mom was the Sag, right? That's what you said
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're both your negative side and your base is in Sagittarius. So essentially you're going to learn all of your most lessons from your mother, which
Ooh,
is
that makes sense.
interesting.
Yeah. That makes a lot of
Hmm.
sense.
Which also means that you're going to be, even though your mom is a good parent, you're going to be an even better parent than her because you're going to be much more introspective and, looking at the bigger picture instead of
Yeah.
just what's in front of you. But no,
Yeah.
I find that when somebody has a lot of water and a lot of air signs, like you and I have the same, we have a lot of Scorpio, we have a lot of Libra, and we have one fire. So my Mars is in Aries, yours is in
Mm,
Leo. And so
okay.
then what I find on here is when people channel or they know how to connect better, there is a pattern within that as well. So people that
Mm,
have a lot of air with a little bit of water, they can generally channel and connect better. And the only thing that I can think of with this is the fact that you can feel all the feelings. That's from the water, Scorpio, Pluto, dark, whatever it is. And then you can
Mhm.
take all those feelings and you can translate it into words, right? So more like in like the
Mhm.
knowledge base, the brain base area. And then the fire stokes your creativity and it makes you go more, 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 more,
Oh
more.
yeah,
So
that
then,
makes sense.
yes, it is. And then you always find it exciting. If you have
Yeah.
somebody that has all earth, they generally are more interested in like not spiritual stuff. It's more money, or it's more a lot of people, most men and even women that I read that have a ton of earth signs, they're either in sex work, like a ton of them with a little fire,
Mhm.
they're in sex work, they're alcoholics, they're drug addicts, they're stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's all dealing with the body and like corporal and like feeling. And so if you get them into spirituality, they'll be like, well, I don't know. I can't feel it. And it's because they don't have that vibration. So they have to work harder. So if you have somebody that only has water signs, then they're like, I'm an empath. And I'm like, everybody's a fucking empath. Like, stop it.
Okay.
And then they get too like in tuned with just that and like
Yeah. And then they
trauma
forget
and all
about
that stuff.
grounding themselves into the earth, right? To take that
Yes.
action. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then air signs are just like, I'm off being a nerd. Creativity everywhere. Don't hurt me. And then you have the fire signs that are just like, if you have somebody that has all or 99% fire, like they're just like, all right, I'm here. I'm here. But like they're not into it. So, like, the sweet spot for somebody being like more psychic or more tuned in is having that lot of water, a little air, and then that hint of fire. I don't know. That's a pattern
Touch
as
of
well.
fire. Yeah, I like that. Little
Yeah.
touch of fire.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
just a touch. And the other thing with you, so what made you start on this journey? What made you like kickstart into this?
Into the journey of the podcast, or like just the journey of
No,
like,
yeah, like what kicked your butt into like opening up and realizing that there was more? Was there like a pivotal moment?
yeah, I think well, I always felt that I was very in tune emotionally as a kid.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely felt like my house was super chaotic. So I kind of felt like, okay, the only way to be safe in my house is to, even I can say it now as an adult. I can be like, oh, okay, Rashida, like as a young kid, you knew how to balance that energy. You would walk in and everything would sort of just settle. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then just like went through life, did teenage years, and was like, I never wanted to be like everybody else. I definitely
Mhm.
always wanted to be different. I grew
Mhm.
up like in the 80s and the 90s. I can't lie, like at that time I was heavy into like rock music, like, and as a black girl being into like rock and like grunge and like chains and
Yeah,
stuff
that was
was
not a
like
thing.
not a
I know.
thing. I didn't care though. Like that was
I
I
know.
needed that moment for myself, right? That's like my
Good.
rage moment.
Yeah.
And like I moved on, I decided to dabble in different things. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest, but like the pressure back then was like, you got to do something. And I was like, okay, I got to do something. I'll figure that out.
Mhm.
And then I had my son Marcus at like 24, and that
Mhm.
literally changed my life. Like that was, I think, the moment for me where like I just birthed this human being into this world. What the heck?
Isn't
That
that weird?
just changed. Yeah, that just
I
changed
know.
the whole course of my entire life, because from
Hmm.
then it was really like, I want to teach him that he can be anything. He made me see things that I would have probably took for granted, because I can now say as a kid, I wasn't really a kid. I didn't get to be a kid. So when I
Yeah.
would see things through his eyes, I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, you know what I mean? The plane in the sky, or like the trains, or all those things was so fascinating that it like woke up that inner child within me, that I was like, oh, Rashida, like,
Hmm.
this is it. And then like the cheesy thing, which I know a lot of people are like,
Tell
oh,
me.
that book, but like
No.
I read the book The Secret. Okay, it was like when Oprah was back on, right? When Oprah was on,
Yeah.
and he had that whole thing where everybody would come on. And I was like, what
Yes.
is this? And I was like, I got to get this
Hmm.
book. And as I
Hmm.
was reading this book, I was like, I had never heard words like that. It was like it was speaking to me. And I'd never
Yeah.
heard that, right? Growing up, like in the Black community, you don't say I love you, you don't show
I know.
affection,
I know.
you don't say like you're beautiful.
You do. They have a lot of tough love in that area because my ex-husband, he was African American, and we have a kid together. And
Yeah.
I was hanging out with him from the time when I was 17 to obviously now. And his grandma, all of my family was dead. And so his grandmother was my grandmother. And I remember going over there, and there was not a lot of kindness. It was everybody was always very mean, but at the same time, the grandmother was the head of the household, but the grandmother would always get shit on all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. That's
Like
kind of,
she's the
I
one
don't
doing all
know.
the work and taking care of everybody. Like, and you're the one
And
being an
that's how
asshole
it
to
is,
her?
right? It's like you
Yeah.
just not, that's how they would show love, right? And so we're now in a
Which
time
is
where clearly that is shifting and changing, especially in the
yes.
Black community. So many healers, so many
Yes.
people I've met, I get excited about it.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
like that moment for me is when it shifted. I would never heard anybody speak like this. And I was like, I need to know more. I want to know
Yeah.
more. This is igniting something. And from then it just kept snowballing into other experiences. And I met this group of
Uh-huh.
women. By that time I had my second child and I we moved to a different neighborhood that I'd never like, I was like, I'm nervous about moving into this neighborhood. Like
Why?
I think it was more like brand new. I'm the youngest daughter and the third
Yeah.
child, and I'm the most
Ah.
sensitive. So I'm the one that's like,
Yeah.
I just want everybody to kumbaya and get along. I want
Yeah.
everybody to be,
Uh-huh.
and like the rest of the women in my family are like Sages. So I live with a whole bunch of Sag. My brother's a Sag. My older sister's a
Wow.
Capricorn. So like it was always just this all the time. And I'm like, no, like, can't we just
Yeah.
talk about it? And they're like, we don't do
No.
that. I was like,
Mm-mm.
okay, makes sense.
Mm-mm.
So I was
Mm-hmm.
just always the creative one. And so from then I met this amazing group of women in my community. And from there, we just got to talking about like life and experiences. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And from there, we would be like, oh, you're into tarot? You're into this? You're that? What? Okay, I never met anybody like
Yeah.
that. And then someone was like, oh, I just took this Reiki class. And I didn't know what Reiki was. And I was like, let me
Yeah.
find out more about this. And from Reiki, it kind of like, I think that even opened it up even more, right? To like, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I always say Reiki brings that vibration, especially as healers and psychics, it's the frequency that you're on, it's the radio station. So I think it kind of like
Mm-hmm.
lessened that in between me. And from then,
Yep.
everything just opened up from there and I just
Yeah.
kept going with it. Until then, I don't do Reiki as much because I really do like to do
Mm-mm.
the psychic piece. And I don't even know if
Yeah.
it's like psychic as it is that I just can see people's emotions and the challenges that they're going through and what they are thinking about. And then I kind
Yeah.
of have to like dissect it and then say, like, this
Yeah.
is that your soul is calling for you to do. You think it's this, but your soul always, they always laugh with me and they're like, Rashida, this is what this person thinks they want. This is what they actually really need in their life.
Yes. Yeah. That's the ego versus what they should be doing. And then
Yeah.
that's where, free will comes into play. And, but then, okay, so back that up again, though. I've had a crazy ass experience last December. One of the things that I'm trying to study, I'm trying to make all this stuff palatable for everybody. And so that way people are not just going, oh my gosh, it's woo woo. And so that way they can like break it down and be like, oh, like the whole astrology thing, like that.
Yeah.
So it can be easier. But, there is free will to a
Yeah.
certain degree. But then there was this experience I had, and I have it all documented. It's on videos. It's actually on my profiles as well. But I was having deja vu. I was in California visiting my husband's family, and I was sitting in my Airbnb, and I was having a session with a client, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, the deja vu feeling came back, and I was like, "Oh, I've seen this before. I've seen this camera angle. I know what this is. I talked to this woman before." And I look at her and I go, this is weird. I said, I am having deja vu right now. And as I'm saying this, I swear to God, I mean, it's all on camera, but like in my reality, my world froze for a second or something. And there was a voice, a man's voice. I could hear it and feel the vibration in my body. And it said, oh, yes, you're going to go and tell her what her husband's nickname is, remember? And it was like right after that, I was like, I go, a guy just talked. I said, I think I'm going to tell you what your husband's nickname is coming up soon. I go, I don't. Don't tell me though. And she goes, okay. And it was like everything just kind of like zoomed back into like regular speed. And about a minute later, there's her mother who's dead is coming through and she's talking about how the husband has put on like an extra 20 or 25 pounds. And she goes, but don't call him fat. Tell him he's just fluffy. And they're from New York. So, you know, they have a little bit of like that accent, right? And I go,
Yes.
it's weird. I said, but your mother is talking about how like we want to call him fluffy and he's not fat or anything like that. And she says, what did you say? And I go, fluffy. She goes, that's what we call him. That's his nickname. It's Daddy Fluffy. That's his Fluffy. And I
Yeah.
was like, so now at that moment, I was like, well, maybe everything is just an experience and we're sitting here and we're watching it, right? But then the other thing is who was the guy that was talking to me? It wasn't just a guide. It almost felt like I had an example of like the man behind a curtain, right? And like I had stepped out of that world for a second and they're like, "Oh, go back in, but this is what you're going to say. Continue the movie." Okay? Like
Yeah.
that. It was that feeling and I'm like, and then after that I was like, "Okay, maybe everything is there's not free will. Everything is already predetermined." I don't know.
I
Give me
kind
your
of feel
thoughts on that.
like that. I kind of feel like things are in some way predetermined. I think we do have free will in like you can pick path A or path B. Either one you can choose. It will just lead you down an interesting path, but will still lead you to like the one.
Hmm.
Because
The same
I can
point.
agree with that in terms of
Yeah.
like definitely had moments where I've had a lot of deja vus, and I don't know if it's more, I've had more deja vus recently than
Hmm.
I've had many years before. So I kind of feel like, oh, if that is happening, maybe the frequency is changing. Like I definitely feel like the radio station is like lessening a little bit more. I think that's why a lot more people are waking up and a lot more people are being open to something that they were questioning. I think so many people want to know, but they're very afraid because they're really used
Afraid.
to, yeah, they're really used to like the Miss Cleo 1-800 number, right? That like $1 a minute, people are still thinking
Mhm.
that when you say like, "Oh, what do you do?" I hesitate. I don't hesitate as much anymore because I have a 5-year-old and she just went to school, so now she's getting friends and everything.
Congratulations.
Right? So now I'm like, okay, I guess I got to start this all over again. My oldest is 19. I got a 16-year-old and a soon to be
Wow.
13-year-old and now a 5-year-old. So the gap is really different, right?
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Right. And then I went to the mom's house and it's our first time meeting. And she's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, and then they were like, "Just say it." And I was like, "Whatever. I'm a psychic." Like, she's like, "What?" Normally you get this, ugh, but she was like, "What? That is amazing. Oh my gosh." And then she proceeds to tell me an experience that she has with someone. She's like, "You
Hmm.
got to connect and this and that. Like, I can't believe you do that." And then I thought, you know what, Rashida, like, it's not as cringe as it used to be. So no more of like hesitating to share it because this is what you do. Like, you can't help but do it. So like just share it
Correct.
anyway, right? Like back in the day
Correct.
I would have hesitated and now I'm just like, no man, like this is what I do. And then I love having conversations like these. Like
Yes.
put me in these conversations
Yes.
every day because I'm always wanting to dissect all the time.
Uh-huh.
Something is happening in
Uh-huh.
the world, or if a celebrity does something, I'll be like, let me see his chart. Why is
Yes.
that person doing
Yes.
this? Like, and
Yeah.
obviously, like my partner will always be like, what? And I'm like, you got to check somebody's chart. Like, there's reasons why people do the things that they do. Yes, you still have free will
Hmm.
and choice. There's still those
Hmm.
things that are behind the scenes that kind of propel you to do that. You have characteristics and personality and things like that that come out in those signs. So, like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
for sure. I'm always like, oh, it's because of this. My kids sometimes are like, Mom, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is.
Ah! Yes, it is.
Yes, it
Yes, it
is.
is.
Don't you tell me anything different, girl. It is that.
Yes. So how is with your 19-year-old? How is that with you? Because I have a 12-year-old now. He's a boy, and
Yeah.
my ex-husband, um, we got a divorce when I was what, 27, so 10 years ago now. But when that was actually one of the big things that ended up making us split up. Was I've been doing this for forever, right? Since I was a little kid, because of all my, illnesses and all that crap. But I remember for about 5 years, I really just kind of shut it down while I was married to him, because he comes from, I mean, we're from Texas. He's from Southern Louisiana, like as like
Yeah.
hardcore South Baptist as you can possibly get, like
Yeah,
that
they
whole
don't
thing.
do that.
No, they do not do that down there. So when I would go and it would just like kind of like naturally come up, and he would be like, that's evil. That's the devil. And I was like, but why? Why is that? And it's because it was a fear, right? And then essentially I ended up getting sick, and he didn't like that because his mom was a hypochondriac, and he couldn't cope with
Mhm.
that. And I started having these more experiences, and essentially it was just a very narcissistic relationship. We'll just like leave it at that. Great
Yeah.
dad, terrible partner. And then I remember getting a divorce, and obviously I'm still doing what I'm doing, and my son would start to have questions, and he would be like, "Mom, what do you do?" And I would be logically breaking it down for him. He's easier to explain to it now when he asks questions, but for the longest time, my ex-husband would just be like, "Oh, it's the devil. It's bad. Don't believe what your mother does. It's fake." All of that, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, so now he sees, and we co-parent very well. And you ready for an interesting karmatic thing? You ready for this? So
Yeah.
he got married to a new woman. I call her other mother. She's a wonderful, wonderful individual. She also has my chronic illness that I have, and she's sick all the time. So tell me that that's
Pattern,
not karma.
right?
It's a pattern. Patterns don't lie. You have to,
Right? You're
yeah,
supposed
yeah,
to, you definitely are supposed to go through some. I definitely believe that. If there are patterns, there's things that you either didn't finish or complete in a past life, and
yep.
you sit there with your counsel, and your counsel says, like, listen, this is what's happening, and you got to
Hmm.
come back because you got to figure out these lessons. And if you don't
Yeah.
figure it out, I don't know what to tell you, but you might have to come back. You just come back in different characters, right?
Uh-huh, 1,000%. So that with dealing with your kid, not dealing, but with your kiddos, how do you explain it? Are they interested in it? And if so, do you talk about it, or are they just, and then how do you, because you're on a different, I mean, you have a 19-year-old. How do you, like for me, I deal with people and I talk to people all the time that die of fentanyl overdoses, and I mean every single day, every single day. So then, I know I'm not supposed to live my life in fear, which I do not, but then at the
Mhm.
same time, how do you go and explain that to your child, and how do you not try to protect them more because you know about all of it, whereas most people don't get to see that. They don't get to see
Yeah.
that somebody touched a baggie in the park and they died right there on scene because it had fentanyl in it.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Hmm.
A couple things. I I don't I'm really honest with them. I try to be as open
Too.
as possible, but I think that's also because I grew up in a household where kids didn't have a voice. And so, like, whatever I saw, like, I grew up in my dad was very abusive to my mom and my sister.
Mhm.
So I witnessed those things, but nobody ever came back to me as a young 4-year-old when I would witness these things and be like, are you okay? Like, don't worry. You know what I mean? Nobody gave me the
Yeah.
comfort.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, there's like 7-year difference between my other sister and then 14 years between my other sister. So they were like basically
Wow. Yeah.
adults kind of raising
Yeah.
me. And my
Yeah.
mom was working like 2, 3 jobs while my dad was working, but like
Wow.
he was all over the place. So
Yeah.
every time me and my little brother would be like, okay, we're not kids anymore, just tell us, they would always say, you guys wouldn't understand your kids. You wouldn't. So we got that all the way up until like adulthood. And I think one day I was like, listen, I'm not a kid anymore. You can tell me, but if you don't want to share, I completely understand why you wouldn't want to share. But know that
Hmm.
what I perceived and what I saw, there was no, nobody came back and said, this is what happened. I'm really sorry. You know what I mean? There was no follow up. So I always felt like when I have kids, I'm going to try and be as open as I possibly can with how I express myself, how I share. Yes, I am a mom, but I'm still Rashida.
Yeah.
Rashida is still
Yes.
was a girl. She still was a teenager. She's still a woman. She's a person. She's a human being. So like I really do try to break it down like that for them. But like
Yeah.
my kids are pretty open to it. Like I think Probably more now as they're older. They're like, okay, that's cool. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Sometimes they'll tell their friends, like, this is what my mom does, if it comes up in conversation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, they're also indigenous too. So I think that that is a big
Oh,
piece
tell me
too.
about that.
That,
That's interesting. We
yeah,
don't have that over
like,
here a whole lot.
yeah. Um, so
Oh,
we
that's
moved
cool.
into a community that is predominantly indigenous. Now, of course, in the
Oh, we
indigenous
need to talk about
community,
that.
right? Girl, in the indigenous community, I honor the culture and the
Mm-hmm.
tradition and everything that comes with it. But we also know that that does not come without trauma and heavy trauma at that. And so to live, I think that also probably ignited my direction and where I'm going and continue to go with healing and even doing this podcast is to say that we all have experienced something in our life that has been very heavily
Correct.
traumatic that we have not been able to, we're still working through it. We're human. There's still layers to that, right? We can still be an adult and then like say, I got this. We can still function, but that doesn't mean that we don't have those moments where those memories might come back or something might trigger it to bring us
Mm-hmm.
back in those spaces, right? But living in an indigenous community where there's a lot of heavy trauma is not
Mm-hmm.
easy. So yeah, when you're talking about like helping people who have overdosed on fentanyl, like that's happened in our community.
I know. There's a community that I read of. I read a lot of people that are indigenous in Canada. Like, I don't know, I guess my name goes around the entire community. It's very cool. It's like,
Yeah.
it's great. But there's this, they're up in Winnipeg, and every time I talk to them, and I guess it's the winter, people don't have enough to do. There's not, everybody feels depressed. And I'm not making this up, but if there's 400 people in that community, 200 of them have committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that's what it is over and over and over and over again. I swear, this poor woman, I was channeling for her, and it was the one of the heaviest sessions I ever had. Her daughter hung herself in the stairway going down to the basement. Her husband killed himself. He shot himself in the head. Her son did it as well. Her grandmother committed suicide by just everybody, and it's just constant, constant, constant. And there's a pattern there, and but it's like nobody's breaking out of it. And going back to the whole, and that's also down in the US down here, it's interesting because I read a lot of people in all of the Native American communities, and they're amazing, but there's also this heaviness. So then it's not just the abuse or anything like that. It's like, what is the root cause? And we can all go through and we can blame it on trauma of past, but at the same time, everybody has a certain degree of trauma. I mean, and we can't always pick up those bags and blame it on things in the past. We have to take responsibility of now and our actions and what we're doing, and we have to let things go and let things lie and then look forward to the future. Because if we keep always blaming, including me, right, including my family, I mean, they were slaughtered in Poland. They were like 90% of them were gassed in the gas chambers, right, because they just existed.
Yeah.
And so if I was to take all of that and then live in that, then I would be fucking depressed. But now I know that I'm
Agreed.
here, I'm in this moment, I'm this person, and we can do something different. So I don't know, what do we do different? And then together we're stronger. So we all have to realize that we're literally all the same thing. It doesn't matter about
Mhm.
body or skin color or texture or height. All that's fucking stupid. We're all connected. Um, and then we all have to learn how to raise each other up and
That's
realize
it.
that we're all one. But then what?
How do you do that?
Yeah, there you go.
How
That's
do
the
you do
whole
that?
thing. That's
To
the whole
me,
thing.
you know what though, but like when you talk about our chart, I'm big on love. Like what
I know
is
you are.
love? Love trumps it. Love will always trump
Hmm.
it. So I'll always say that till the end of time, that
Yes.
all we need is to love more, and we hesitate to
Yeah.
love because we don't want our heart to be broken. We don't want to be
It's
vulnerable. We
fear.
don't want to be,
Fear.
yeah. or fear that our
That's
heart is
it.
going to be broken and there's vulnerability and now I'm exposed to everybody. But can you imagine what happens? I get goosebumps when I say it. Like when you just love to its fullest,
Yeah.
unconditionally, there to
Yes.
me in communities that have experienced trauma, which so many have, um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of anger. There's anger,
Yeah.
there's frustration, there's confusion, there's all these things. And I mean, I could say that too. Like, I had anger and
Correct.
frustration and all those things growing up. Like, why did I have to live like this? Or why did I have to be exposed to these things? But I also said for myself, I made this decision
Because you
like,
had to.
yeah, like when I get to be an adult and I become a parent, I'm going to make sure that my kids don't live the way I lived. That
Correct.
was it. And that's how I
Correct.
switched it. I was like, I'm not going to
That.
be the parent that's going to be yelling constantly. We're going to set that tone from the beginning that that's just not what we're going to do. And from there, it just keeps going. Even if some
Hmm.
people might question my choice in not having like a regular job, right? Like when I started
Well,
this
it's
work,
none of their damn business.
right?
They need to go fuck off and find out. Sorry, that's not their damn business.
Exactly, right? So like
Yeah.
those things of like I want to make sure that I'm happy. I want to make sure that every day I wake up, I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. And yeah, we're humans. I'm not always going to be like hunky-dory 24/7.
Are
But
we human? That's
well, you
another.
know,
Okay, that's the next
that's
conversation.
a
Wait,
whole
keep going
nother
with that.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Uh huh.
I'm going through that right now, actually. Were
I'm
you ever like this? Like I remember
always like
one time
everything.
as a child where I don't know, I was just going through something and right away I said, I want to go home. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that day that I said it because I stopped. I was like, I had like an out of body experience. And I'm like, "Well, Rashida, you're
Uh huh.
already like, you're in the basement." And I was like, okay, but I
No.
want to go home. And then I left it alone. And then I
Uh
grew
huh.
up and became an adult and then started doing this work. And they were like, yeah, because like this isn't your home. Like,
Mm-mm.
and then I
Mm-mm.
thought, oh, that kind of makes sense. Like, because I could
Mm-hmm.
never, I I can still function. Like I can still do
Mm-hmm.
that. But like
Mm-hmm.
home for me, there's always this part where I'm missing it. And then maybe like last year, maybe 2 years ago, my
Open
12
it
year,
up.
oh yeah, my
Yeah.
12-year-old had said it. And like she never knew my like me saying it, but she had a moment. She's like, Mom, I just want to go home. And I was like, I didn't
Repeat
even
it.
know how to answer it. I think I was more like, you know what? Like, well, babe, this is where we live for right now. So we just got to make
Yeah.
the most of it. But that
Yeah.
stood with me because I was like, oh yeah. And she has that, to me, she has that connection. I remember going to somebody, like, you know, the Akashic records and stuff. I had never
Mm-hmm.
gone, so I went to someone, and she was like, she was your teacher in a past life and now
Mm-hmm.
you're a teacher. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense because she's the Sag, but she's like, Mom, I already know that. Mom, I'm like, I
Yep.
know that you know everything, but you're here in
Mm-hmm.
this body right now. So I'm here to teach you. And can we just chill for a little
Yes.
bit?
Yes. Yes.
But
Yeah.
that's the
I
type of
think
conversations I have with the kids, right? Like,
yes, because that's good. That's what it's supposed to be. I think that we're the aliens. I mean, remember we're you're okay. You're both alive and dead at the same time. You never actually. I mean, you're not actually ever dead. Your consciousness just shifts to
like a
here,
different thing.
which
Yeah.
is here, and it all exists right here. And you know, it's the different frequencies, it's the different levels. There's the higher vibrational state, which people call heaven. There's the lower, which is the darker. Some people like to call it hell. There is a middle, which is more like where we're at because we're trying to be good versus being bad. So we're
Yeah.
technically in the middle. And then when you die or your body can't hold on to your consciousness anymore because it's done its job, it's done its pattern, then it just shifts here to a different vibration to which your eyes and your instruments of your body are not made to see and feel because it's made to experience this reality. Now, if we think about what a quote unquote alien is, that sounds pretty alien. You have like a consciousness that is hopping in a corporal form, that is coming into a physical space, and it has every intelligence in the entire world, which it does, which you do, Your
Mm,
brain can only process so many things because that is what this physical brain is made for, right? And
yeah.
then we get these little downloads or these little quips, and we're like, oh my God, enlightenment. Well, that's what you naturally are. You're now just like tapping into it. And at
Yeah.
that point, you're picking up on everything. I don't know. I think we're the aliens,
Yeah. I
but we
definitely
never
think
existed. Yeah. I, but it's not
I
an
think we just
alien, it's
get
just
too,
you.
I think we get too trapped in this physical form that we
Oh, a
forget.
thousand percent.
Like,
1,000%.
because as a kid, you, especially like, and I'm sure your son has probably has had those moments too, where like kids will say like the most amazing things, and you're like, where did that even come from? And you're like, oh yeah, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Like, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then as they
Yeah.
get to like teenage years, they sort of like come out of it a little bit because they're trying to find their own identity and stuff. So like,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead, like find your identity. I'm just here as a guide. Like, I'm not here to
Yes.
puppet you, but like whenever you want, I'm
Uh-huh.
here and I will help you as much as I can with also like not stepping in too much. Cause I don't know how it is with you, but like I can see sometimes like what my kids will be doing. I don't know exactly, but I'm like, oh, you're gonna be successful at whatever it is that you do. Like, oh, I see
Mm-hmm.
like my 16-year-old, you're so creative. You might not know what you want to do right now, but that creativity is going to propel you in some way because a gift, when it comes
Correct.
so, I
Yeah.
always feel like if it's a gift and it comes so naturally, like nobody
Yeah.
taught you to do it, it just happened. That's because you're supposed to utilize that in some way in your life. Doesn't matter how. I don't know the how, but you should
Mm-hmm.
absolutely do that. And I want to be able to just be there to hold space for you as you still try to figure that out. Rather
Correct.
than being like, sometimes they'll be like, well, mom, you're a psychic. You're supposed to tell me exactly what's going to happen. And I'm like, no, no,
No.
I can't do that.
Because
But,
you haven't seen everything, you haven't felt everything. The only
right.
way that you get messages are is because you have something to go off of what you've seen, felt, and experienced before. That's why
Yeah.
when people go up and they go, "Oh, well, why can't you tell me, like maybe I'm channeling somebody that is from Algeria, and they're like, well, why can't you tell me their name? Or why can't you bring up this person's name? I'm like, I don't know Algerian
Sure.
names. I can tell you maybe somebody is named like Carl, and then you're like, oh, it's Carlosina Sanatanata. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they, whatever you have, this whole experience, whatever is downloaded into your brain, which is your experience, that is what they can use to talk. So that also goes in like near future. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't felt it before, then you have no idea. That's why sometimes people are like, oh, they're like, oh, well, will this cancer or will my disease be treated? We have no idea what type of medical stuff is going to happen in the future. Therefore, you can be like, well, yeah, but it may be that it's treated for long term and we view that as successful and it
Mm,
going away, but it actually never goes away. It's just being put off to where it doesn't kill you.
yeah.
You don't know.
Never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask this question? I think I'm gonna go a little deeper.
What? Anything.
When you're talking about, because I want to just talk touch on this topic.
I don't care.
I did an interview with somebody like a couple years ago, and I love this story. I always share it with people. She was going through chronic stress, but at the time she didn't know that it was chronic stress. She was just bleeding profusely, like to the point where she needed like blood transfusions and all these things. And she would go to the doctor constantly. Nobody could tell her what was wrong, but she was just like, okay, the doctors were like, well, we don't know what else to do, but like the best thing for you to do is have a hysterectomy. So she
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay. She showed like this bag, a Ziploc bag of medication that she would be taking on a regular basis. And she was a busy woman, right? Constantly doing
Mm-hmm.
all these different things. That the moment, I think she was supposed to go like a few days before to the surgery. And they were having a meeting, and her husband was there and her mom. And she wasn't really too much into spirituality, but she was like, there's something out there. I know that. But like what you said, her husband is also American, so very Baptist, like doesn't believe in all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she then says to the doctor, I'm not gonna go through this. I'm not doing this. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the room was like, what are you talking about? Like you're clearly not well and you're seeing like you're passing out all these things. She's like, I can't do this right now because I'm afraid that if you don't know what's wrong with me
Afraid.
and now you're telling me to have a hysterectomy, where is that problem gonna go? So she's like, I'm not going to do it. She had a trip to go to South Africa. She ended up going. She met a woman over there who was taking all these different tinctures. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"What are you taking? Like, what are all these things?" And she's like, "Oh, I went to this place in Toronto. It was called Soul 7 at the time." She goes like, "Here's the number. When you come back, you can go and check it out." So she comes back now. She goes, she checks it out, and they put her on this like it's like a magnetic bed, and there was crystals that were there, and they laid
Mm-hmm.
her down and they set her up to all these things. And when they're done, they come back. And it was a doctor at the time. Like he was a doctor, but like I guess he decided to move away from more of the medical and move more into the holistic part of it because his
Yeah.
wife had passed away from cancer. And he was just like, there's got to be more to this kind of thing. And from them doing all these tests, they realized that it was chronic stress. And they were like, we wish you would have come to me earlier because they
Yeah.
could tell exactly like you're bleeding, you're this, and she's like, I didn't tell them anything. So they were
Yeah.
like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create these tinctures for you. We're going to ask you to come here and meditate. Like this needs to be a continuous thing, and we'll have you like lay on this magnetic bed with the crystals. But the one thing that we need you to do, most important thing is we need you to believe that you can heal yourself. Like we need you to believe that like health is there. It's part of you, right? You can't think anything else. You need to think that. And so she's like, for a month, I dedicated myself to me and did everything that they asked. I meditated, did everything. And she's like, within a month, she went back to the doctor and they tested her levels. She was no longer bleeding profusely. She didn't need the blood
Mm.
transfusions, none of it. The doctor was shocked, of course. The doctor was just like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
you do? But she's like, I don't know. I just like did all these
Yeah.
extra things and whatever it was. Um, and obviously he's like, he wrote it down. And I'm like, oh, you never want these doctors to be writing these things down because it's like, wait a minute, like y'all are taking
Yeah.
work from us or whatever. But she goes, from that moment on, it changed her life. And that's when she
Yeah.
started to get into the holistic side. And now she's created this space that, like, every so often I work out of and stuff like that. But I always
Yeah.
love to hear those stories because it makes me sometimes think, and I don't know, Louise Hayes says that too. Whatever it is that's coming out in the physical, it's because it's something that's hitting spiritual. And we're not listening
Tell me
to
about
our
it.
body. We're not listening to spirit. Spirit's always talking to us. It's just whether or not we
Yeah.
are actually paying attention and listening. And
Correct.
sometimes Spirit's like, girl, you ain't paying attention. Boom.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
wake up. You need to rest. You need to X, Y, and Z. What is
Yeah.
your thought on that? Because I,
Mm.
because I'm not to say like everybody goes through something. There are people that are experiencing like a lot of different medical issues and illnesses, and they really do kind
Mm-hmm.
of feel like this is it for me. Like I can't, this is my life. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it's not to say that you should not get chemo or not go through whatever you need to go through. But I absolutely do feel like there's this spiritual piece where like spirit is saying, we also need you to believe and trust that whatever the
Correct.
process, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it on both. So I've kind of been in both those shoes, and that's where more data. I'd be interested to see all of her charts and everything, and then go through it with a fine
Mm,
tooth comb because I'd like to see the data because sometimes people talk about it, but there's these other little details that people leave out. So I'm all into. So I'm not saying that it's not true. I would say yes, but why? Is there something else that was going on? Is there something else there? And so from
mm,
there, then I can make a proper thing. But from having a chronic condition that I've had, 28 surgeries to kind of like put me back together,
mm,
and having 40 near death experiences, there was this period that, and this is where the whole belief comes into play, is that there was a time period from when I was, 21 to 29, that I had 19 surgeries all together to put me back together. Things were just falling apart left and right. Like abs were ripping open, my guts were falling out of me. I had brain surgery, like you name it, back and forth, back and forth. And at the very end of my last surgery, when I figured out after, 6 months of learning how to walk again and like learning how to pee on my own and like all that bullshit, um, one of the things that I was doing during that time period was I was on all these different groups, dealing with my genetic illness that I had. I was on 3 different groups. I was talking about it every day. I was discussing it. I was talking to other people that were sick and feeling bad and terrible and all that stuff. And mind you, I was supposed to have 2 or 3 different surgeries after that, and they wanted me to go back, every 6 months to get looked at to make sure that other things weren't falling apart. Um, and I decided, I got really pissed off because I was like, I'm tired of being sick. I don't want this anymore. I'm over it. So I was like, well, we're either going to get more spiritual, we're going to commit suicide, or we're just going to ignore it. So I got more spiritual and then I started ignoring it. And then I started kind of just believing that I was healthy instead of going through and looking at all those groups. Now, am I healthy? No. But I haven't had a surgery in 8 years, and I was supposed to have 4 more. And the things that I have
Mm.
going on, this is where it gets weird. So there's all of my, you can see it kind of, but all of my
Yeah.
stomach is mesh. I have all these different cuts all over it. So it goes from here all the way down to my pubic bone, and this is all metal in here. And because my tissues are super stretchy,
Mm.
everything rips very easily. It's like butter. And so there will be times I literally have felt a hole in my abdomen where it has ripped, and my little gut will come out and it will hurt. I will have the worst pain going all the way down to my leg. And if I focus on it, I'll call my doctor and I'll be like, hey, I'm going to have to come in for a surgery. I'm feeling this hole here. And he's like, all right, come in. And then I'm like, let's just see if I just ignore it and act like it's not there and not put focus on it, will it go away?
Mm.
And this happened recently, like a month ago. And I stopped focusing on it, and there's not a hole there. It's not there.
Mm.
There's no pain. It all went away. Now, I'm not saying 100%. Could it just go back in? But it was weird. Like, this is a big fucking hole. It's in your abdominal region. You can feel it. There was a lump, like a whole 9 yards. That's not a normal thing. And it goes away. So I'm saying there is something to do with that. The more you focus on it, the more you believe that you're gonna get sick and that you are sick and how terrible it is, the worse that it is.
Mhm. I kind of feel that way too, and I'm not saying it for every, like, I never wanna,
No, not everything.
but
Mm-mm.
I definitely feel like when you focus in on something, whether it's because
Hmm.
you're scared of it, of course it's going to amplify because now all your
Amplify it.
energy and
Energy
attention
is
is on
on
that
it.
one thing. And so, of course, when you put your attention and energy, it just does this. So imagine if I was
Uh-huh.
like, okay, let me take my attention away from that and move it to what it is that I want, then maybe it might amplify in that way, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then from there, this is where the scientific thing comes in. So then I had cancer when I was 5, lost my kidney. There's no reason for that to happen, right? Had all the medical treatments, and I'm so happy that all those medical treatments were there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. And then my dad, he had it. He ended up passing away from it, but he tried to do the sound therapy and he tried to go into that route as well because his chemotherapy and all that stuff just wasn't working, and
mm,
it didn't work. And he believed fully that, it was going to heal it after everything has failed. Didn't work at all. So then that means that that's just his path. That's what he was supposed to do.
mm,
He was supposed to experience that. With this woman that you're talking about, I would even say that she had that happen so she can open up and become more spiritual. It wasn't
mhm,
ever about the illness, it was about her
mhm.
opening up.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
Everybody
it.
has that moment. I think everybody does have that moment, it's just whether they pay attention to it. But every time I like have a convo, I'm like, what is that moment that woke you up and said like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like your
Mm-hmm.
soul waking up and saying like, well, your soul was already there, but they're like, wake up.
Yes, yes, yes. Wake up 1,000%. So like with her, I can't say that yes, it works or no, it doesn't, because this goes back to the whole, is it free will? Does everything already, is it all
Mm,
pre-planned? Because, if it heals, you were always supposed to heal that way. If it
yeah,
doesn't, then I don't know. That's where it gets. But then
yeah.
I've also had clients where their soul, like the mother will come through, or maybe the son will come through, and he's like, I didn't want to take the chemotherapy. I didn't want to cut out the tumor because I knew that if I fasted, that God or source or whatever it is would heal me, and I did it, and he ended up dying. So then
Mm,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't
I
know.
think in
That's
those
where my
moments,
conclusion is.
Yeah, I think in those moments it's definitely we have a belief that it will work out in that way, and yet
Mhm.
your soul has something different. So it's like what you said, that path, like your
Yeah.
path was supposed to be that, and whatever underlining thing that was supposed to, you know what I mean, that led to that. I always feel like there's always this underlining thing that
Oh yeah.
leads for sure. And
Yeah.
then like if it's something that was in your past life and now you're in this life and for whatever reason you still have to maybe experience whatever it is. I feel like nothing
Uh-huh.
in anybody's life is an accident. I always feel like there's
No,
no
nothing. No, there's no
thing.
accidents.
Yes, like
No.
everything happens for a reason. And if you are like somebody that's gonna dissect, then you can look and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, yes, yeah. Like yesterday, I was having a session with a client, and she's over in Australia, and her mother's coming through, and she's talking about how she did the doctor-assisted suicide, and then all of a sudden, I go, "It's weird." I said, "Your mom was talking about the dates of Leo." I said, "It's weird. That's like I think it's July 27th through August." I said, I can't remember what dates it is. I said, I don't know why she would bring that up. She goes, oh, well, her birthday is the 27th of July. And I was like, oh, all
Mm,
right. Well, that works. That's why she told me to say that. Because remember, it's all based on, what your life is like. So I have nothing dealing with the 27th of July. Therefore, if she was
mm,
to try to bring something up for that day, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But telling me to go and do that, that's how that works. And the more that I channel, the more I realize that we are absolutely not in control ever.
ever.
Never. And I'm okay with that. I like it that way.
Yeah, I'm all right with it that way. I feel like Spirit is like, why would you guys want it any other way? Like, it would be boring. Life would be boring
Yes.
if you do everything. Like, you don't want any
Yes.
surprises
Yes.
in life? Like, this is why you guys are here.
Yeah. Yeah. Surprises are, I mean, they're amazing and they're great. And like, well, what is it too? I mean, the people that, how do you say this? Well, let me like rephrases. Nobody should ever have any fear. Fear is the lower vibration that we're trying to work away from. And fear is the thing that stops everybody and everything from doing anything.
Hmm.
Everything. You shouldn't have fear with anything. I mean, obviously, and I don't even think it's fear. I think part of that, because some people are like, well, I mean, you have to have fear about going out in the street. No, that's not fear. That's awareness,
Mm,
of like not letting your kid go out into the street, and get hit by a car. That's not fear. You have awareness that you should not do that. I think fear is the thing that causes all these negative things that had to happen. I mean, my dad had this fear that he was going to get pancreatic cancer his entire life, and he would talk about it. That's what he died
mm,
from, pancreatic cancer. So does
mm,
that mean too, if he didn't have fear, would that
mm.
have ended his life that way? That's a scientific thing that we can't go into. And then the
Yeah.
other thing that we're going to touch on really quick is I had this one download this one time. It was a long time ago, and I had this download of this essentially like a grid pattern. You know how like chain link fences, they have like the X's, all the way across. So they showed me this massive chain link fence. It wasn't a fence, but it was just the X's. And those X's represent people. So like the arms and the legs
Mm,
going down, and everybody is connecting. And when we all get together, we're a grid. I mean, we're
mm.
this where everybody's electric. It's all
Yeah.
vibration and frequency. And so, in order for, and this is a thing of like, okay, so we do live in this world of duality. Is the darkness trying to overpower the light? How does this work? What wins? What is that? And they showed me an image of all these X's, right, coming together, and that's strong, that's connectedness. And then something, whatever this is it a lower vibrational state? Is it just the demonic version of people, which is just a lower vibrational state as well, which is a manifestation of them? It's like they go through and whoever this is breaks it down. So they go, okay, we're going to break it down by country. So therefore, that grid
Mm,
is cracked. Then somebody
mm,
goes, we're going to break it down by state. Okay, that grid is cracked again. Okay, we're going to now break it down by religion, which in
mm,
itself is a corrupt thing. Then we're going to break it down by color. Then we're going to break it down by eye color. Then we're going to break it down by height. Then we're going to break it down by sexual orientation, which is who the fuck cares what you do with your crotch? That shouldn't even matter. Then we're going to break it down by what color your kids are based on you. And so essentially what ends up happening is that something is trying to break it down to
yeah.
nothing, and everybody is falling for it.
Yes. Oh, that makes so much sense. That makes a
Hmm.
lot of sense. I got goosebumps with that one. Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that. We get
Everybody's
very
falling for
much,
it.
yeah, we get very much distracted by
Yeah.
all of those things so easily too, of course. And I mean, it's honestly no shade to anybody because like we're human. We're gonna get
Hmm.
distracted at some point. I catch myself sometimes and I'm like, wait a minute.
Hmm.
No, this it's not mathing. Rashida, this
Yes.
doesn't make any sense. We're gonna
Yes.
step away from
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely want to help as many people as I can, and even
Hmm.
especially my kids, because I want the next generation to be able to get it at a younger age. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
not be
Hmm.
afraid of whatever comes up. Because like my 16-year-old has the gift and
Yeah.
she uses it every so often. So now I want her to be able to feel confident in it. I also want her to use it for herself, right? So, like,
Correct.
no, you don't have to be a psychic or anything like that. I want you to be able to utilize that in every choice and decision that you make so that you're never
Correct.
sitting there and being like, should I, or this, that you feel confident and grounded in that decision. You took time to think
Hmm.
about it. You consulted. I would say, like, my spiritual posse, like, we had a
Hmm.
combo with them and say, yeah, like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to follow through with that.
Yes. Or feel like they're alone.
Yeah,
Because all
that's
of
a
us
big
felt like we were alone, but you're never alone, ever,
never. Yeah. And it becomes
which I
even
think
more
is really
tough too,
cool.
because it's like social media and all those things sort of like derail a lot of that and bombards them.
But that's all you can do. And remember, those people are there to show you how to not be like. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Easy. So that's it. And nobody's ever going to fix all of it because even those people are a version of yourself. We're
Yeah.
here. I think so many people go, oh my God, when is the world going to find its peace? When is the world going to be perfectly happy? It's not. That's not what we're here for. We're not
Yeah.
here to all come together and sing kumbaya. We're here to go and figure out, our truth, our light, which is everybody else's at the same time and help other people and then connect. And you can't do it all, but you can go through and try to awaken, I would even say, the different parts of you that you find in other people so that you can raise up together because that's essentially what it is. Have you ever seen the movie Nine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's off of numerology. And that's off of the single, obviously, the whole thing is like the single soul of that man. He puts his different fractals into these little puppets, and then they go
Mm,
off on their own adventure. I want you to read about the different numerology numbers and what their personalities are like, and then go through and watch that, and then realize that it's like an underlying thing of how we're all trying to find this one soul in humanity in the darkness.
mm,
Like there's this total deeper meaning with it.
yeah.
I'm gonna rewatch it tonight.
I,
But
I
yeah.
think I would too. Yeah. I got a whole long weekend. So yeah, I think I want to watch that
Yeah.
because I do feel like we're
Do it.
just sharing one consciousness. It's just
We
split
are.
into billions of,
Yeah.
right? Like we're all
Yeah.
connected. Like me and you, when you talk
Yeah.
about like our
Yeah.
charts, like how connected and how similar.
Yeah. Uh-huh. You can't deny that. We literally are. And then the ego thing, I think it's so funny now. I mean, even with what I do, I it's so, how do I say this? Like, so I'm going to a really high profile wedding next week in New York, and I've been invited by a couple of people, and I'm gonna go there, and there's gonna be all these different types of celebrities and everything there that we're gonna be reading, and it's so interesting because when I go to these places or I go to these events, like everybody's just a person to me.
Yeah.
I don't go, wow. I'm just like, hi, you're a person. One of my best friends, she goes, you just go, oh, we're people. We're all doing people things. And so it's really hard for me to go and, find a fancy dress and spend $800 or find, this to go and get because I'm like, why can't I just show up in pajamas? Because it really doesn't matter at the end of the
Does it
day. And
matter?
no, no. And then I'm like, well, we're all just playing dress up, so might as well have fun
Have
with the
fun with
show.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I also hate reading celebrities. Not that I won't, but I do enjoy it ever so often, but I also hate it because when you are in the public eye, you have two personalities. You have the
Yeah.
outer wall,
And then
have the
the
inner.
inner.
So as
I
soon as
like
you
the
get
inner
in,
though. You got to touch
yeah,
on
the
that.
inner's good. Well, and so that's what you do. As soon as you get in there, everybody's very comfortable. You start channeling, you start feeling, and it's super easy to like break through that wall, and then you get into like the inner, like soft, creepy center, and it's great.
Yeah,
But yeah.
because I think that's the one that people, everybody on this earth, everybody has two personalities. Everybody has the one that's outside that they show to everybody, and then everybody
Mhm.
has that inner that they don't share with anyone. And I think that that is the soft, gooey spot. That's the spot
Well,
that they really want to show to everybody. That's the one that they want to
yes.
feel seen with, they want to be heard with, and they're wondering, that's the one where they feel alone and they feel like, does anybody
Yeah.
get me? Does anybody understand?
Yeah.
And that's when you can come in and say, like, I get it. Like, I don't see you
Yeah.
as this. When I do the work, I just see you as light. I see you as that soul.
Yes.
And like, what is that? That's the person I'm communicating with.
That's it. And that's what everybody has to get to. They have to be okay with being seen and not being afraid. Fear, again, going back to it, fear is the basis of everything.
Yeah.
And you got to get rid of it. That's it. Done. Mic drop.
Mhm.
There you go. From there. So,
Yeah, this was a
conversation.
great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, no, exactly. Well, I appreciate you so much.
This is the Ultimate Human Experience Podcast. We are out. Peace.